How do we write cold emails that convert? Now, this is a big question that a lot of people have, I'm sure. And really, let's get into a couple of simple rules that you can really install today to start writing better emails immediately. So let's talk about the big, hairy problem in the space, which is that most cold emails suck, right? You might see this from LinkedIn from time to time. People, at least on my feed, are always posting stuff like, I got another terrible message on LinkedIn, or DM. I got another terrible cold email in my inbox. Why would salespeople just leave me alone? This is horrible. I hate it. That's one end of the spectrum, and unfortunately, I'd say that's where sort of 95%, 99% of emails sort of end up. And I have the same reaction to them. I don't like getting these emails that are sort of, they trigger me in all kinds of different ways. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have emails where every so often you'll find somebody share a screenshot of an email and say, this was an incredible experience. They'll tag the person who sent it. They'll tag their CEO, and they'll say, wow, this was so good. Now, how do we go from that end of the spectrum? Well, from the first one to the second one, right? And it really comes down to a couple of structural things. This isn't just gut feel. This isn't just art. This comes down to some technical writing. Now, when you don't get these things right, you're going to upset people. I think that if anybody here has sent a cold email, you're almost guaranteed to upset somebody, and maybe many people. But we don't want to do that. We want to minimize that as much as possible, and we definitely can by following a couple of rules. We also don't want to waste time, energy, and resources. Unfortunately, I feel like many sales teams start this off, and then they'll get to the point where they're sending things out, they're writing campaigns, but ultimately it's not really going anywhere. And then they realize, oh, wait, so cold emails aren't working at all. We got to stop doing cold emails. Cold emails don't work for us. I don't know if you've ever said that to yourself or anybody on your team has, but if that's the case, bear with me here because I might be able to change your mind here. I think any industry can handle cold emails. It just has to be done the right way. And then second to that, it's got to also be giving you some ROI and producing results for your team, right? Now, you're also going to start conversations in the wrong places if you don't have structure. And if you start a conversation in the wrong place, guess what? It's not going to lead to a sale. And ultimately, again, not sure about anybody watching this here, but for me, I don't like the idea of sending some sort of email that starts a conversation talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a big fan. But do I want to start a sales conversation with a Pittsburgh Steelers conversation? That's just small talk. That's the kind of stuff. Hey, how's the weather? Small talk. It's nice when you're in person. It's polite, maybe a little bit. But for a sales conversation via email, no. You have to be very, very specific about where you're starting. And that's the way that you're going to produce results. So let's get into how to actually, before getting into how to do this, I did want to go through a couple of really fun examples with you all here. So this is an interesting email. Let's put it that way. Let's be a little bit diplomatic here. We don't have to read through the whole thing, but I hope you see how big this is. This is something that even without reading any of it, you should in your body have a reaction going, I don't want to read this. I don't want to look at it. It looks like a lot of information. I don't want to deal with it. Hit delete, click to the next thing. Especially in an age of, maybe this would have worked for our grandparents sending a message like this or maybe a letter of some sort. But for this sort of day and age, imagine, you've got your mobile phone out, you're reading your emails on your cell phone, and then you see this thing just, and it's horrible. Nobody's going to read it. Then you've got something like this where this one we can get into a little bit here. So, hello, Dan, I'm blank with this software design and development studio. I wanted to touch base on possible cooperation between our companies. Is that something you're open to discussing? Warm regards. So cooperation between our companies, right? Is that what we're going for here? I don't know what they mean. And although this is a short email, short doesn't automatically suddenly become magically great, right? This is not a good email. We're going to get into exactly why in a bit, so stick with me here. But so this one here is a question about Voris, right? My name is blank. I'm the CEO at blank. Our laser-focused approach to creating profitable blah, blah, blah is boom, 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 blah, 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 right? And without even reading the details here, there's just a lot happening. And again, this isn't a good email. We're going to get into exactly why and how to fix this and the others in a second. And then finally here, there's this one where, again, we don't have to read the whole thing here together, but it feels like a lot. And if you get into it, there is quite a lot happening in here. We will get into maybe some more details. But all of these emails should trigger a little bit of a reaction in different departments in different ways with you. And ultimately, they're all not great emails, unfortunately. They're not even the worst that I receive. But they all do something wrong that we can fix to create sort of good best practices for our companies and for our sales emails. So I'm a big fan, by the way, of looking into your own inbox to see where the mistakes are being made that actually trigger you. Because odds are if it's triggering you, it's probably going to be triggering other people. And that probably is a good way to train your team in how to send stuff that would actually make you happy to respond to, right? So here's what I want to make sure that everybody takes away from this class is that by the end of today, you're going to learn exactly what makes bad emails bad, not just that, ooh, they're a bad email, but what exactly makes a bad email bad, and then what makes a really good email really good, okay? So there's really three principles here. And the first principle is that emails need to be specific and relevant, right? Sometimes those two words overlap a little bit because being relevant sometimes is being specific, sometimes being specific is being relevant. But however you want to understand that, they've got to hit both boxes. Specific means focused. Specific means one topic, one idea. And relevant means it's that one idea that I care about. So focused and then something I care about, specific and relevant. And when I say I care about, like I said, I like the Pittsburgh Steelers, but in a work context, I mean, really, that's not where I want to be spending my work time at all. And I'm sure the people that you're trying to reach don't really appreciate locking into random bits about your past just because you've seen my LinkedIn profile, or maybe you stalked me a little bit on I don't know, my Facebook account or Twitter or something. You might see that, I'm a big soccer fan, for example, or that I went to X university. Unless you truly have some real common ground with somebody there, I would suggest that the name of the game is just trying to be specific and relevant in your own message based on the person's job role and based on what you can find out about them in a few minutes of research. I found that will take you much further than spending, hours trying to look up each individual person's travel history. It gets into some creepy territory, to be honest. And at the end of the day, even if you do reach them, you end up with all these sort of hacks that, even if they don't feel creepy to the person, they don't get to the point. What is the business conversation that we want to start? That's ultimately the thing that we have to nail in cold emails. Unlike calls, where cold calling is probably still the quickest way to move the needle, but on cold calls, you have your voice. It's a human on the other end of the phone that you get to connect with. That's a little bit different. You have a little bit of a cheat code with your voice, your vocal tone, your tone. Here on the call, we're able to sort of look at each other, and I can at least look to the camera, and I can cheat a little bit by trying to put my energy up, and you see me smiling over here. So there's all kinds of stuff that I can do when I have body language, maybe when I have voice. Emails, you don't have anything. You just have your text, and you have to be sure you're specific and relevant to the person reading, okay? Principle number 2 is that emails need to be clear. So many times we have the right offer. We spent a ton of time on that. We've tested it. It works. We know that. But then when it comes to an email, we somehow disguise it. And unfortunately, I think this is because many people are trained to write the wrong way in school, and we want to learn to write very, very directly and clearly as salespeople. That really means following a couple of simple rules we're going to go through today towards the end of the call. But it comes down to 4 specific rules that we'll cover in detail. And this is something that anybody can do. This is not a special magical copywriter skill. This is something that whether you're the CEO, a sales rep, somebody from another department, you should be able to clearly and directly state what your value is to the market, specifically to that prospect. And then principle number 3 is to think in frameworks, not templates. This is sort of a big pet peeve of mine, is that a lot of the sales teams that we talk to end up sort of scrambling around looking for templates. Hey, give me the email and I'll send it. And there's no thought put into it. And ultimately, I think that when you are looking for templates, you're looking for this cheat code. And here's why that's not going to work. A cheat code is basically something that is going to disappear in 6 months, because whatever clever tactic, clever little hook that's there is, that might get overused by people, and people will stop reacting to it. I know on LinkedIn, you've definitely seen stuff like this where you might get a DM that starts with, hey, I remember this one specifically, actually. Hey, you and me, I noticed we both breathe air. Shouldn't we be connected? So it's a sarcastic, stupid joke. That used to work. When it first came out, for the first couple of weeks, believe me, people were reacting. I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. And then when everybody started copying and pasting it everywhere, it became horrible. So it's almost like a sign that you're this lazy person that can't think for new things. So frameworks are really about understanding the structure of communication rather than looking for magic words. Does that make sense? I think that looking for structures of how can a message be received, understood, and then digested, and maybe spun back to the person and say, oh, I'd really like to speak to these people. I'm sure you've had experiences like that. And it's because the framework underneath it was good communication. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Now, this particular framework that I want to run through, I've summarized it down to I like little clever acronyms, right? In this case, I don't know how clever this is, but it says CASE, right? C-A-S-E. Those are the letters that I want you to look at. We also have a 4-letter phrase for the bad emails. Now, CASE rules are really simple. We want to be concise. So for concise, we want to be 75 words or less whenever possible, and I think usually it's possible. So don't be lazy here. Really spend your time on the edits to be as concise as you can. Focus on one topic or problem that's being acute, right? We don't want to cover everything. And so, breathlessly just word vomit onto our prospect. Look at all the stuff we can do. Boom, 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 bam, 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 bam. We don't want to do that at all. We want to make sure we're focused on one thing at a time. And then finally, we want to be able to, we want to be supportive here. So our S in case is supportive. We want to be asking if we can help. We want to watch our tone. Are we coming across as aggressive? Sometimes people read text messages or text in general on the internet with their own sort of voice. You're not there to verbally deliver it to them. So you can't be that nice, smiling, happy person with that nice sounding voice. Sometimes if you are writing in potentially a little bit of a salesy manner, you might be coming across as very aggressive. So be supportive. How can you be that friendly tone? Can you be a little bit uncertain? We're going to get into all that in a second. And then finally, for easy, we really want to be as easy as possible to understand. What is the simplest possible way that we can express our product and use the language that prospects are familiar with? Maybe there's a little bit of industry jargon that you can sprinkle in, but I would still suggest that you really, really should use the simplest possible words. And if you remember high school, like I do, there was a lot of time spent on the thesaurus looking for the longer words so I could fill up my word count, right? And we don't want to do that. That's going to impress absolutely nobody. Nobody cares. And unfortunately, I see many people, salutations. Why? Just say hi. Be direct, be clear. And we're going to get into exactly how to do that in a couple of examples, which I think is the best way to learn. So let's go through here. Give me 1 second here. So what would this one, that we looked at before look like? I mean, or feel like? It's not a good experience for anybody, but let's break down why. We don't like blocks of text in real life, on social media, on email, anywhere, even in blog posts. So anybody who writes like this is outdated and probably not very relevant in terms of good communication for the online age. Now, what can we do? We could use white space. We could do a whole bunch of stuff really around formatting to fix that okay? And then if we were to keep going here, so even if they have a good offer, which it's sort of iffy if they do, but in short, let me give it a little bit of context. Maybe that's going to be helpful here. This is essentially an email pitching a service that gets to feature me or our company in some sort of top 10 list or top 30 list. And as usual, it's one of these pay-to-play things. So for $3,000, I'm going to get you in front of this audience of 129,250 qualified print and digital subscribers. Now, this part of it, if you tell me that you're going to put me in front of 129,000 qualified people who are pretty much in leadership roles, I mean, suddenly $3,000 sounds like a good idea, right? So buried inside of this long message is something very, very valuable to me, but it's just buried and I'm never going to read it. So instead, what if we were to write something like this? So, hi, Dan, do you currently use PR to increase your reach? I'm with whatever magazine where we have 129,000 plus C-level subscribers in the US. We're releasing our top 10 sales training companies, and I think you're a great contender. Mind if I ask a few qualifying questions? So here I haven't mentioned price. I haven't got into all the details of everything. I've just asked the question. Do you want to get in front of this audience? As a CMO, as either a CEO, pretty much anybody in the C-level, I think, of any growing company, yes, you want to get in front of the audience. So I'm isolating what is the offer, and I'm trying to cut it down to just say, is this interesting to you? And I'm being a little bit uncertain here. Remember from earlier, we said salesy versus supportive. Say, hey, look, I'm not sure that we're a great fit. I don't pretend to know everything about your business. You can use terms like this to just soften the tone of your email and then say, well, okay, would this work for both of us? And then that usually starts a very good sales conversation in a position where the two sides are at least close to equal, and if you're using AEs or whoever's doing your calls, your sales calls, would appreciate. So that's a good version. And then if we keep going here, why is that exactly? It's focused, it's efficient, and then it's also using sort of our best benefit as the singular focus that we can tell our readers to really actually care about. And then finally here, we're making sure that it is easy for the reader to consume and understand, really, is the main point. What's the quickest way to put information from my brain to your brain? That's what we want. Now, let's look at another email. If you remember, this was the second email or the third email we popped up second email we popped up. And it was basically a short email. So this one reads, hello, Dan, I'm blank with software design and development studio. I wanted to touch base on possible cooperation between our companies. Is that something you're open to discussing? Warm regards. Whoops, should have put on her name. But anyway, that message is short. So we're ticking a box here. It's brief, right? It's got to work. And unfortunately, being short is not a magic bullet. We've still got to communicate something. So I wanted to touch base on possible cooperation between our companies. Where is the benefit to me? Me, the selfish reader, right? You're talking to me. I need to get something out of this. Why should I show up? Why should I even hit reply to you? If there's nothing there, there's nothing there, right? So I want you to really consider what is the thing that is going to get you to actually get people to respond with excitement, with a real, genuine desire to speak to you. Unfortunately, if you don't get it across, you never say it, people aren't going to understand it and magically look up to your studio and then do all this homework about you, even if you have the best possible thing to offer them. And then, so again, technically here, this is a common issue that I think is disappearing slowly in the sales world, thankfully. But this idea of touching base and cooperation, we know what it means, but just be direct. And then here we've got sort of discuss, again, what do you really mean by that? And then here's how to fix it. So instead of changing anything about the length, because I like the length, I just rewrote this to say, well, I changed the subject line too. So by the way here, cooperation is an option. What does that mean? Do you want to turn your content into software? Ooh, maybe. So this one says, hello, Dan. I run blank, a software design and development studio specializing in tools for consulting companies. Bing, bing, bing. I noticed that you have a bunch of models and calculators in your free resources section. Oh, you've checked out my website. Have you considered turning these into embeddable versions your readers can use directly on the site? I mean, I'm cheating a little bit because that is a thought in my brain. So I put this, you see what I mean? This is why doing customer research is usually important. But basically, I'm being more focused, I'm being more customer oriented, and I'm being very, very clear, because specificity and clarity are linked like this. So if you can be very, very specific and clear and you nail the relevancy, boom, specific, relevant, clear, you nailed it. So again, here, this is something that I care about specifically. I've thought about this. I've reached out to people. It hasn't worked out. Maybe you have the solution for me. This is how to reach out to people. And if you have spent maybe 30 seconds on the Vora site, you will see that we have a free resources section with a whole bunch of stuff. Maybe we want to turn that into calculators. We do. Models, stuff like that. This is a prime thing for somebody in her position to be reaching out to me for. And I would suggest that you have the same capability without doing tons of deep research on individuals, which I hope you see what I mean. I use the analogy here of the icing and the cake. You got to make a great cake. The icing's nice, but you've got to have a great cake. If you just have great icing and you don't have that cake underneath it, it's just going to fall flat and you're going to disappoint people. So the great cake is the point that you want to get across, and then the icing is the communication here. And then, so this one is obviously, it's relevant, it's personalized, and then it's specific. Again, those are the three common things to look at. And then we end with a very easy question for me to answer, yes or no. And it's easy enough for me to say, oh, immediately, yes, I've had that thought, I've not had that thought, or I like it, I don't like it. Then number 4 here is being salesy. So if you're carrying on with our analogies here, the first bad thing was being too long. It's an L. Then we were unclear. That's a U. Now we're at an S, salesy. So here's an email I got that is, you can already see with like all caps and commission-based. Things are bolded. None of this feels natural without even reading it, just visually. It doesn't feel natural. But let's go through it here. My name is blank. I'm the CEO at this commission-based appointment setting agency. Our laser-focused approach to creating profitable appointment-setting campaigns for our clients stands on 4 core principles: commission-based, dive deep, software systems, and always be optimizing. Okay, here's a quick video. Watch the video. I'd love the opportunity to learn more about your business, your challenges, and your goals. That's the first time that he's mentioning me, is in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would love the opportunity to learn more about you. Doesn't even know anything about me. To see if there's a fit for our commission-based appointment-setting companies. What's your schedule like? And then let's get on a call. And then, again, here's click on my link to book the call. The whole thing was about him. The whole thing was about this guy. And unfortunately, that's not the way to be. I think that's where I just, I get a lot of these messages. Anybody can send these messages, and they're all focused on the writer. That's not good. There's a great stand-up comic called Brian Regan who used to talk about the me monster. Basically, the person at dinner parties who was insufferable was every time somebody had a story, they would respond with their own story about something relevant there. Like oh well, you won the race, I won the race. His example was going to the moon. It's like, oh, you took a trip, I went to the moon. Always trying to one up somebody. And just focused on themselves. It's very egotistical. It's very bad conversationalism, I suppose, and it just does not bode well for somebody replying to you. It's a lot of information, blah, and then no real opportunity with something specific back. Except, do you want to meet with me now? I'm awesome. Would you like to speak with me? Not really. I don't know anything. I don't know why. That question was never covered. Why? So this is the me monster. We got the unnatural writing. It's the bolding and the all caps. We've got these sort of 3 CTAs to click on where it's got the link, the question, the other link. It's just too much stuff to do. And it's just it feels icky to me. There's something off about the feeling. And then again, this is some of the tone here is, let's say, a little bit of, this one feels relatively genuine because he's at least being straightforward that he wants a meeting. But a lot of these emails are sometimes disguised, and that icing, the bad icing, is done with, I would say, false flattery, sideways conversations, or a little bit of fake small talk. And then they write, anyway, we do blah, 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 blah. It's very unnatural. Now, how to fix all that? Basically, again, I fixed the subject lines. So, Dan, question about Voris. Oh, what? Why? Do you want leads? That's a little bit different. Hi, Dan. I'm the founder at Blank. We're a commission-based lead agency with experience in the B2B sales space. I wouldn't pretend to know your exact lead setup. You see that recurring theme of being a little bit polite. I wouldn't pretend to know your exact lead setup, but we might be able to help in that department. We've got a plug-and-play system that typically delivers results in the first 30 days and takes about an hour to onboard. Would you like to test it out for free? So for me, that's a pretty good offer. It speaks to a little bit of either a platform or a packaged solution that I can install immediately and sort of test a little bit. That's very good. And I think that this is, again, this is short, it's direct, it's specific, and it's clear. And then this kind of stuff is also a little, we talked a little bit about uncertainty. We might have to do another whole tool or material on that. But I think that being uncertain, being simple, being a little bit careful is the right way to approach people on email. We also have, I guess focus is something else to talk about here. It is focused towards one problem, one solution. You want leads? Problem. Here's my solution. And then there's a no-brainer offer. Here's a freebie, or here's something that you can test. Here's a free trial. Something like that is a nice way, especially if you have some sort of software that you are selling. And then finally, here's the last little bit that is the killer for most cold emails is when you are being genuine, you are being nice, you have a great offer, you're doing all that great stuff, and this often comes from a technical founder where you're just being overly technical. You have this incredible solution. You're tackling a very, very deep problem, and the solution you have really does solve that problem. It really does. But there's so much to it that you end up speaking to all the features, and you feel like you have to explain. If I've explained this a little bit, I've got to talk about this a little bit, and then it jumps from here to there. And it's just mind-boggling to just follow as the poor person listening to this. They want to like you, they want to understand you, but then you're talking about all this stuff all over the place that it's just hard for somebody, for an innocent person at 3 a.m. who might be reading this email. That's the other test is, can they, maybe forgive the analogy, but maybe they're middle of the night, they're stumbling to the bathroom and they're sort of checking their cell phone, middle of the night, and they click this open, they're all bleary-eyed, right? They're half asleep, and they get this email and they hold on, what? I think that's really the test. If you can still get to that person and you can still communicate to them in a way that is really easy to understand, and frankly, I think I'm showing you the way, that's what you want to be doing, because ultimately that way you know that you're writing to the lowest or highest common denominator, however you want to think about that in terms of attention and understanding. And in this case, so this person says, Blank, I'm sending this email up on behalf of Blank. Every quarter, I'm going to summarize this a little bit. We work with companies that want to grow with influencers and use influencers on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram channels, right? So we, at the time of receiving this, we're not using a specific channel, but we were on one other one, so some of this is not relevant to me. Our goal is to build a partnership and long-term relationship, this is paragraph number 3, between influencers and your brand. We would like to offer you the placement of your integrations with our influencers in social networks such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Also, we can match you influencers to your criteria, your influencers to your criteria with a minimum commission and run a campaign for your purposes. So look, ultimately, this probably is not a bad offer at all, but there's so much happening. Like, well, we're going to connect you with this, and then you're going to find this, and then we're going to get to this, and then we're going to get to that. In a cold email to me, you could have just said something much simpler, which I'll show you what I wrote in a second. But also, how do you make sure that your product is so cool, right? But not so cool where it doesn't completely lose the person's ability to focus on what the solution is, the outcome. Ultimately, people care about themselves and care about your solution actually solving a specific problem. So here, where is the problem that I'm facing? So I don't know. It's never said. So again, here this is a little bit long and a little bit maybe a touch salesy if you want to maybe nitpick a little bit. It's also something where there's so many steps involved. And I think that if we achieved a second, and then we get to the how-to too quickly. We didn't talk about the problem. We didn't talk about the solution. And I'm not saying they have to write a whole sales page. We didn't even state what the problem was that we solve. Okay, so here's my fix here. Again, let's get the subject lines. So cooperation with blank company versus YouTube growth. Maybe he's taken, again, how long would it take to figure out whether I have a TikTok channel, Instagram, all that good stuff. You visit my website, you'll see it. If you scroll to the footer in about 10 seconds, you can see this information. And if you click on my YouTube channel, or you do what I did here, which is I grabbed a screenshot from our own YouTube channel's performance from a free website called Social Blade. There's tools for this for everything. So basically I said, okay, these people focus on YouTube. I'll just put in their performance thing into Social Blade. Oh, look, their performance has dipped recently. Okay, maybe that's a solution maybe that's a problem that I can offer my solution for. So here's the read through. Hello, Dan. I checked out your YouTube channel and noticed despite some great overall growth, performance took a hit over the last couple of months. And then, boom, circle with the image. And by the way, putting an image like this in a cold email, totally fine. I don't want to hear deliverability issues. You can absolutely do this. Maybe you'll get a little bit pinged, but this is not some blatantly cold emailed, mass automation. You're doing this once manually for a prospect. And I want to just backtrack for 1 second here and talk about the fact that I said, despite some great overall growth, many companies use this type of thing when they're selling SEO services or web design services, often from other countries, which is, I think, partially an English as a second language thing, which, first of all, speak better English than I speak of their language, but sometimes there's a little bit of nuance that's lost there. And sometimes some of their writing can come across as very direct and very, a little bit rude. So, for example, if I had said, I checked out your YouTube channel, I noticed it's a disaster. What are you guys doing? Come on. I can fix everything for you. That's not good, right? I feel a little insulted. So we don't want to do that. So this is the way to be a little bit gentle and watch the tone in the writing. So I checked out your YouTube channel and I noticed blah, blah, blah. Performance took a hit. No. We help channels like yours maintain and build momentum by connecting with niche influencers. This year we've already helped accomplish whatever. Is that something you're interested in? And then boom, we're done. So that is the way to be a little bit more focused and fix being overly technical with being focused, with being just focused on one solution, really, and then not overdoing it in how it works. Or don't worry about it. I'll show you how it works once we start speaking. But just, is this a problem, and does my solution sound good to you? So why does all this work? Well, it's pretty simple. You're going to write emails that are more focused. You're going to write emails that are easier to understand. And then you're going to write emails that are more relevant to the prospect. I really want to come back to this idea consistently, this 3 words: specific, relevant, and clear. Specific, relevant, and clear. Those 3 terms are really what you should be grading each email on. Okay, this is super important, and it's something that is very easy to actually literally create a little checklist next to each email that you ever prepped, whether they're automations, whether they're manual emails. Specific, relevant, and clear. Am I hitting all 3 boxes? Now let's get into Q&A. I'm going to go from the top. So designer asked, is adding images in a cold email a good idea? So in general, it is frowned upon, but if you have a specific reason for it, I think often it makes up for the difference. Personally, I would be very careful, and if you're in an industry that is visual, I would be using screenshots. I would be using, the occasional image. I think it makes up on the back end in terms of performance for you. So consider, if you're wondering about whether or not you should use images in your cold emails, the short answer is try it out. If it truly does hit your deliverability and sort of, takes your automated email campaign off the, your performance dips dramatically, then stop doing it. But I would suggest that there are certain industries out there that would actually benefit quite a lot from adding images. It also helps your email stand out significantly in a sea of everything that looks the same. Okay, the same goes for video. So, okay, how many sequences are you guys sending per campaign? So for me, a campaign usually is about 5 emails roughly. I think that they can get much longer, they can get much shorter. But if you're sending out a cold email campaign in general, I like to use 5 emails. I like to use an icebreaker or intro email. I like to use a proof email. So maybe it's broad proof. So what are the biggest numbers that I can sort of claim and just say, we've done a lot. We've been around for a long time and we've helped these big companies. Lots of different proof. Email number 3 is a how it works email. Email number 4 is another proof email, but it's a deep dive. It's a case study. And then email number 5 is a see you later email. in other words, a breakup email, but we write ours slightly differently so that the tone is a little bit better and you can actually keep emailing people in the future if the circumstances are right. So let's keep going here. Max, you asked for pointers around subject lines. In my opinion, subject lines should be the most boring thing you could possibly think of. The most brief, boring, and direct, simple thing. Look, if you occasionally stumble upon a funny subject line, great, maybe it works for a few people. But people spend way too much time trying to be clever, and honestly, at the end of the day, most people are just not funny or clever in writing. It is much easier to just be direct and simple, because at the end of the day, does the person want jokes in their email, or do they want help with their business problems? You've got to ask yourself that. And I think it's the help. So the more direct you can be, the easier it is to handle. So let's keep going here. I work with a team of inside sales members who have been tasked with reaching out to offer upsells to existing clients. 99% of the time, they have no relationship with this client. Any specific suggestions for this situation? So yeah, I think that before you send out the email, I think you can ask the rest of your team. This is where a lot of the silo departments kind of hurt the performance of sales. Can you spend a few minutes asking somebody else in a different department about the relationship? Who's managing that account? Is there something that they're going through? I think that there's definitely some level of research that you can do before sending out the email, surely. And even if you can't, at least then I would just cut it down again to be as specific, clear, and relevant as you can be. Why should they bother continuing? Why should they bother buying something new from you? Be very focused on the offer. And hopefully this isn't just, hey, do you want to buy more stuff from us? But rather, hey, I noticed that because of X, you might want to get Y specifically, right? Specific, relevant, and clear. Those three words are going to save everybody a lot of heartache here. Jen, do you build a multiple email drip like a 3-email strategy? In general, I do both, and I think that most sales teams should be doing both at some point. If you're at that stage, if you're just getting started and you're literally creating your first team and creating your first campaign, I would get a generic cold email campaign done that focuses on one persona. Like I said, those 5 emails. That's the icebreaker, the proof, how it works, the other proof email, and then the see you later email. And you put that together and you send it out to one persona and you make your best educated guess about what problem you're trying to solve for them. That's the best possible way to get going with automated emails. And then if you're more on the manual side of email sending, then you might want to consider a tool like Lavender that is a little lavender.ai, great website, great company, great people. It's an email writing coach that is an AI tool that sits there in your inbox, and you can use it to sort of score yourself as you're writing, and it'll call out specific things like your sentences are too long, or it's not personalized enough, or something like your words are too complex. So that's helpful. And I think that in general, here's the very broad rule of thumb. If you're trying to reach a gigantic market and you have this list of hundreds of thousands of people to email, I think then if there's a spectrum between manual and totally automated, maybe if you have that giant market, you err a little bit towards the automated side. If you have a very small market and those you really can't afford to burn those relationships and you got to be very careful, then take your time to push it a little bit more towards the manual side of your writing. And I think that's a little bit of a case-by-case call. So I hope that helps. Now, let's go here. Any thoughts on using personalized images generated via tools like Hyperize and such to include personalized text or images in the first email? To me, they don't really add much value, just to be direct. I think that they used to. I think 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, it was kind of cool to see an email with some sort of image where there's somebody holding a page like this and it said, "Hi, Dan," and it's obviously it's fake. But so it was a gimmick. It worked for a while. I don't think it really works anymore, to be honest, at least for me. Maybe I'm too close to the industry, but I just see it. I know what's up. I know what it is, and it's not the best way to write valuable messages. So I would try to just focus on getting even better at stating what you're actually selling in a specific, relevant, and clear manner. What are your thoughts on cold emails with "sent from my iPhone" at the bottom? I've heard this advice from SaaS Academy and have tried it, but haven't seen a huge difference versus leaving that out. This is sort of audience dependent, and I know we've used it from time to time, and we used to use that in our bump email actually specifically, and it used to work very well. I'm not sure how it's performing now. I think it's one of those things that it might be a little bit of a spike in your performance, or might help boost your performance a little bit. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's one of those things that I think is more of a detail, and it's a little bit of a hack rather than a deep strategy. So it's one of those things, once you have your specific, clear, and relevant message, then you can come and try to add something else in there. And by the way, if anybody has actual emails that they send, please feel free to drop them. I can take a look and sort of edit for you live on the call. Jen, should you add video to your cold email? The short answer is you can try it out and see what happens. I don't think that it might hurt your deliverability if you're sending these massive automated campaigns, but if you're sending truly personalized videos, sure, it's worked very well for a couple of the clients that we've had in the past. But again, you've got to be good on video to do that. So just remember to keep that in mind. We've also seen some people fail, and then I've seen the videos that they send out. They're just awful to look at. You end up looking at somebody's face or kind of like this as they're trying to talk to you, and then they show up like, I mean, it's not a good experience for the viewer. So consider that a little bit. Do you include cold calls in your cold lead sequences? Often we do. Sometimes we build a cold call campaign separately and then a cold email campaign separately, but usually they're quite easy to weave in. So as long as if you're just sending if you have a general offer essentially, you can really easily weave in the cold calls with your cold emails. Whether you start with email first or call first doesn't really matter. Some people like to use voicemails. Personally, not the biggest fan, but you can. But they're really, it's up to you. And this, I think, isn't a big lift either way. Once you find a campaign that works, you might want to start doubling down and then add to it. So if the cold emails are working, try adding calls to it. I would rather you start doubling down on your strengths and just cut the losers completely versus trying to rescue a complete loser, if that makes sense. Be genuine and human in all outreach. Clever often backfires for various reasons. Thank you for that summary. That's very nice. Yes, that's correct. So customize the unsubscribe link so that it isn't so easy to click. Jen, no, please, I don't like doing that. I also don't want you to have like big neon lights around your unsubscribe link. I think that's not I don't want people to stop talking to us for no reason. But I do want to very specifically say that these kinds of things, people can sniff out the BS pretty quickly. And frankly, it's a little bit of BS. If you make it hard for me to unsubscribe, or if I'm literally subscribed to you as a company and then I don't know where to cancel my account, don't you hate that? I mean, I hate that. And if I hate that, you probably hate that, and probably our prospects do too. So let's not do that to them. What's your take on asking a question in the subject? Questions in the subject can be good, but make them simple. So don't sort of, again, people get overly clever with the questions. What is the simplest way to ask if they're struggling with blank? It's probably to ask, are you struggling with blank? There's a famous, I can't remember who said it, but there's a great copywriting quote that says, sometimes the best way to sell a horse is a sign that says, horse for sale. That's it. And I think that's sort of the ethos that we want to carry on here. Does the case framework work as well for emails upselling existing customers? Yes, but I would add that you want to really double down on the relevancy and the specificity. The more that you can talk to why this specific person should buy from you now, even if it's an upsell, well, the more that you can then communicate that to the person. So yes, it works. I would just be really doubling down on why should they care and why now? Those two topics, okay? Why now? Why should you care? Emojis and text speak. If you mean text speak like lol, WTF, OMG, I would err against those things, but you're welcome to try this out. Basically, these are guidelines, not rules. If you choose to use emojis and text speak, I guess, you can try it out, see what happens. But I would rather get an email from somebody who feels a little bit professional and is laser focused, if that makes sense. I don't need somebody sort of like, I mean, I might do that with you right now on video like this, but come on, if this was a real sales conversation, would you be wanting me to do all this stuff? Probably not, right? How does your messaging differ if your first outreach is via LinkedIn? Well, okay, so that's a good question. First of all, a lot of the same writing rules can be applied to LinkedIn messaging almost exactly the same way, and you'll see better results if you're not really following these rules. However, if you're on LinkedIn and you're doing something there that's very clear to sort of say, okay, well, I'm going to send them a message and then send them the email, or I sent you an email and I'm going to connect on LinkedIn. Whatever your second step is, you can use the first step as a sort of a cheat of an icebreaker. So your first real email might be, hey, I just tried connecting with you on LinkedIn. I just sent you a message on LinkedIn, and I wanted to follow up here on via email. Hey, I just tried you by phone. I left you a voicemail, and I thought I would leave you. I'd follow up here on email. Or call up and say, hey, I just left you an email. I personally prefer using the other one as the call as the hack, where I can say, I tried you by phone, but you didn't pick up, or something like that. So yes, you can mention that you've tried to reach them on another channel and you're trying here now as well. It's not bad. I don't think it's going to move the needle for you as much as being super. Do you see the repeating theme here? Be very, very, very focused on what you're trying to communicate in a way that is specific, relevant, and clear. And that will save you all the heartache. All the tactics and the hacks go out the window at that point, really, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on the book a meeting link, and do you have any suggestion on how to maximize the function? So yes, I do have thoughts. Booking a meeting link is a little bit aggressive, in my opinion, for a first email. For the first email, I want to look for a little bit of agreement, a little bit of yes, that sounds like a good idea. Then in email 2, I might even still be soft in email 2. I might also say, is this still interested? Is this worth it? But definitely by email 3, that's where I get a little bit less polite, and I just say, hey, look, here's a meeting link. It's not being rude or anything. It's just direct. Do you want to speak? Here's a link. That's really the best way to think about it, in my opinion. I'm building a campaign for a client who is an accounting service. Would love your thoughts on how to create a campaign for custom home builders. So an accounting service for custom home builders. Well, you might want to look into sort of what tools are built for custom home builders. What are they currently using? Can you figure that out at all before you start to create an email around it? If so, you might basically reach out to them and say, hey, look, what do you currently use for your accounting? If you'd like something maybe a little bit specialized, or something around that line, you want to be obviously very truthful here. And I don't know what you do, but that is how I would start the email. And I would basically say, look, it's a very simple problem. I have an accounting solution. It could work for you. Would you like to see it? And maybe you can send over an example, a free trial, a screenshot, something like that to get them interested. And you've got to know, why is that accounting tool better for these custom home builders than, let's say, QuickBooks, right? That's the real name of the game. And a lot of these times we're trying to replace another tool that they're probably already using. We want to know where our edge is. And it doesn't have to be nailed down every time. You might be a little bit off the mark, but in general, we know that our tool is cheaper. We know that our tool is a little bit better because it's better for people managing building projects, and you might be able to see your profitability live project by project. I don't know. Maybe that's something that QuickBooks can't do. So understand where your strengths are, lead with them, and then be focused on that one problem. Your thoughts on having any senior title in your email signature? Look, I'm not going to lie. If I get an email from a CEO or a founder, I'll probably feel like there's a little bit more oomph to it. I might say, oh, that's pretty interesting. I might feel like there's a little bit of care coming from the top of the company, but I would want that to come from the actual founder. I don't want that necessarily coming from what is essentially a lie, right? So I would be honest, basically, is rule number one. Just whoever's sending the email, it's fine. I think these are things that don't move the needle greatly. And if you want to try it out, let me know if it works. I am interested in the hacks too. I'd like to see what kind of triggers people and what works, good or bad. But I think really, ultimately, if the most brilliant offer came to me in a way that was specific, relevant, and clear from a junior first day on the job sales rep, and it hit my inbox and it really hit home with me, I'd love it. I'd say, great, let's talk. I wouldn't really care about who it's from, ultimately, if the offer is really, really great and the email is delivered in a nice way. So let's see. I think that's pretty much it here. I hope that this has helped you. I hope that you remember these 4 rules, and I'm going to repeat them one more time here. It's the CASE framework. We want to be concise, which means 75 words or less in your cold email. We want to be acute, which is one thing to focus on, one problem and one solution. We want to be supportive, which is being polite, which is being a little bit gentle in your writing, especially in that first cold email. And then we want to be easy, and that comes down to natural language. That comes down to sounding like it comes from a friend. That comes down to really one of the best ways to do this is to speak out loud to your phone. And of course, you're going to need to edit that out a little bit, but you want to speak it out. And if you're not sure about how it sounds, if in your head, literally read it out loud, speak out loud while you're writing, run it by somebody else on your team, have somebody else read it back to you. There's all kinds of ways for you to test what it sounds like in the person's head that you're trying to reach. So anyway, CASE, concise, acute, supportive, and easy. I hope that helps. Take care of yourselves. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye.